With rising energy costs, more and more of us are looking at renewables, not just engaging with companies that are already in the space, but taking the initiative and installing our own power sources. Well, joining me today in the studio are two guests in this new and exciting space. Nearest to me is the Chief Executive and founder of the solar panel company, Jo Parker-Swift. Jo, thanks indeed for joining us. And Juliet Davenport, who was awarded the OBE to services to the renewables sector, the founder and former CEO of London-listed Good Energy Group.
Good morning.
Juliet, it's a pleasure to have you here in the studio. Jo, if I can pick up first of all with you, talk a little bit about Solivus, the company that you founded, I think back in 2016?
Yes.
There's a lot of water passed under the renewable bridge since then. I'll get on to the history of what happened then, but what is Solivus about exactly?
We have products that we're bringing to the market that decarbonise the built environment. And it, really on the design-led side, but we're finding out that not only homeowners want design-led products, but commercial side of the business does as well.
Let's talk a little bit about the Solivus Arc, which those that know the company will know you for, but I know you've branched out into other areas subsequent to that. Explain what the Arc is about. Well,
the Arc was about a solution for the home that meant that I didn't have to put solar panels on my house. I've got a Kent peg tiled cottage. I didn't want to put solar panels because it would affect the aesthetics of it. So I wanted a ground mount system that was designed well, a kind of a low carbon product that would be something to show off about, a kind of a status symbol, if you like, for innovation and design in this sector.
Was that the first product you came up with?
Well, I wanted to design a tree initially,
right?
Because I figured out that the surface area of nature sort of had the answer, because you can generate a lot more energy in a small area of ground space. So that's where the idea came from, and we started trying to create the solar tree, and then the electronics made that very expensive. It might be possible one day, but it was too expensive to do it. So the innovation turned into the shape that we have now, which is the Solivus Arc, which I absolutely love, and others do as well.
I want to get onto the expense side in just a minute, because with this rise in energy costs, all of a sudden this becomes a more friendly sector to engage with. And it's on that point, I think, Juliet, if I can bring you in on this and say you're a board advisor to Solivus. You have a good and long track record in the renewables sector. And indeed, as I said at the top, you have an OBE because of your work in this renewables space.
Yeah.
First of all, what brought you in, 20 odd years ago when you started Good Energy?
So I started life as a climate scientist. I was interested in climate change and trying to figure out where the solutions would be. And I spent some time working in government. I spent some time working in academia. But actually, I mean, not dissimilar to Jo, I kind of thought that going direct to consumer was a really interesting route, and actually would be much faster, because what I found was that government tends to move very slowly, as we all know. Academia quite slowly too. Brilliant ideas, lots of blue sky thinking, but actually practicalities of implementation takes quite a long time. And so Good Energy was founded around delivering to the individual customer and trying to make life simpler for the customer. And originally we bought power from lots of independent renewable generators and supplied, and actually then we morphed into supporting people generating power in their own homes.
Then you came up against this idea that Jo came up with Solivus and so forth. You're now a board advisor. What did you see initially in Solivus when you were approached?
Well, obviously a great CEO. That's always a start. I mean, the management team is really important in any company. I love the technology. So the idea that you've got a technology here that you can deploy, particularly on rooftops that can't take the weight of full-scale solar. Also, that's much more flexible. The Arc is brilliant because it's an easy install as far as I've understood. So not quite plug and play, but not far off. And you don't need, I mean, anybody's had solar panels put on their roofs at home. Not only are there the aesthetics issues, but also you've got to put scaffolding up. You've got to come and have people work through the house and make sure the rooftop can bear the weight of solar. So this is a brilliant alternative solution.
Well, Jo, let's take a look at the technology. You brought along two sheets here. It looks just like plastic to me, but explain what you've got here.
Well, this is to demonstrate sort of how lightweight and thin this is. This is the organic solar that the Solivus Arc is made from. It has a really low carbon footprint to make it, which means conventional solar, for example, you have to use for a number of years before it will pay back the carbon it's taken to manufacture the product, whereas this is only 12 weeks. It's one of the cleanest products, if not the cleanest products. It's won all sorts of global awards for being so clean. All the ingredients within it are in abundance all around us. So it's not deep mining, there's no toxic substances in it. So it can be recycled as well. So in theory, you could put it on every roof in the world and you're never going to run out of the ingredients to make it. So it's truly sustainable. So the ARC is kind of a flagship for this product, and it has advantages that you can't do with other solar. You can't shade normal solar, but you could actually cover up 80% of this and the other 20% will still generate energy, which means we can create these three-dimensional shapes. So it's like the cutting edge of innovation. We're sort of like the Tesla of solar with this new product, if you like.
I just want to pick up on one point on that. You said that there's this 12-week sort of payback, if you like, for these green panels that you make. That's not to be confused with the economic payback, of course, which is over a far longer time, which I'd like to get onto a little bit later on. What I do want to do is, if I can, is to pick up on the second panel that you brought along here and explain more about what you're doing with that.
Well, through this journey, I was interested and intrigued why lots of warehouses don't have solar on the top. And then I realised it was a weight issue. A lot of them can't take the weight of conventional solar. So, we'd started working with lightweight solar, and I thought, wow, this is a huge market. There's a huge opportunity here. There's about 40% of warehouses in the UK that can't take the weight of conventional solar, so it is a big market. So Solivus have become specialists in this area, and we've got a number of lightweight products. This is another one. So this is one that you would use more in the industrial setting. So it's more powerful. It is affected by shading, so you can't make three-dimensional shapes out of it, but it works really well on roofs. And we've had a huge uptake. We've got a huge pipeline of opportunities. We've started installing. We've installed on airports and a sports stadium. And we weren't revenue producing last year, and we're already getting going with installations and customers.
Are you finding a bigger pickup with the film as opposed to the ARC? Now the ARC is, I think you've described it as a piece of sculpture, haven't you, which sits in your garden and absorbs rays of sun. Yeah. This obviously, as you said, operates in a different way. Is there anything other than the fact that it's just completely naked to the eyes? It's just easily installed and very cheaply.
There are huge advantages to the people who own assets. They've got an asset in their roof that they don't realise yet. The advantages of these products is you can actually glue it on, rather than having to use the frames and glass that are on usual solar, conventional solar, and you have to drill into roofs, and there can be issues or problems with that sometimes. So this creates comfort that you can just glue it onto roofs.
One of the things I've heard about is that all this is made in China. A lot of people say, well, we're just fueling this. And of course, China is factories, they generate power by burning coal. Do you find that a problem? Where do you source your materials from?
We have two products that are European products. This product is from China, but the reason that I agreed to sort of go into promoting this one is that they're going to be creating a product in Europe, building a factory in Europe.
Juliet, I want to move back onto you because you, with your history of engagement with the sector through a listed company, when you have a listed company, you're answerable to shareholders, us, the people that invest in your business. How difficult was it initially to get funding for this? Because we're talking here about, especially 1998, when you first listed, I think it was. I can't imagine many banks really wanting to invest in what is essentially the future.
Yeah, so we didn't actually list till 2012, but we founded the company in 1998, and the It was a really interesting time. Originally we had a German clean tech investor who was funded by individuals in Germany, high net worths in Germany, but they actually went out of business. So we then had to find another funder. So we had some high net worths on the board who funded us for a brief period of time. We did a management buyout, but we actually ended up, to put the company on a stable footing, we ended up doing a crowdfunding back in 2002. And that was before really crowdfunding existed.
Yeah, that must have been so new.
It was very new, but it was interesting because we had a customer base. So we had about 3,000 customers at that point. And I used to listen to the phones, and quite often they call up the call center and say, well, could we invest? And so I thought, well, why not? Why not follow what we're hearing? And we did a crowdfund, raised, I think, just over 500,000 in about 2 weeks, and then repeated that over time. And eventually we actually did a green bond where we raised just over 30 million in a green bond to do construction finance for building renewables.
It's interesting, Joe, you just interjecting there. Astonished by this. I appreciate there's still areas that you maybe haven't yet spoken about, but you too have engaged with the crowd. Now, I accept that crowdfunding is relatively new. And of course, when you started doing that back in the early century, there weren't that many people that had this idea.
I don't think it was even called crowdfunding at that point.
Possibly not. But you have actually gone out and you have crowdfunded, haven't you? Was that a preferred way of doing it rather than go to banks? Because banks are now engaging with companies in the renewable sector like they weren't before.
Yeah, so I was lucky at the beginning. I mean, I did have to talk to a lot of people, but I had some great high net worth investors at the beginning that spotted what we were doing. Very, very clever people, and they backed us at the beginning. But it was just getting to that next stage of needing a lump to be able to create the product. So we were aware that crowdfunding, to be honest, I didn't want to do it initially, and my team talked me into it. And I'm jolly glad they did, because it's acted as a sales channel for us.
So it engaged you with the very people that were interested in the product to begin with.
It's been an amazing experience. And, we now have a lot of ambassadors as a result of doing that.
Would you go to the market to become a listed company on the London market at some point?
Yeah, so this is the third company that I've founded. The other two I sold, and I was on earn-outs with those. The second one was to a FTSE 250 company, but I've never done an IPO, and I'm looking at the markets, and I'm seeing what companies like this are going for on IPOs, and it would be way more than we would be able to get from somebody acquiring us. So that's certainly something we're going to be considering.
It's interesting, Juliet, your experience, would you recommend, I mean, obviously there's a time and a place for this sort of thing. Is it something you think that it is an advisable sort of route to take?
So I think it completely depends on the company and the status of the company, because one of the things, as soon as you list, what you have to be aware of is that everything you say has to be communicated to your investors. And so first of all, you have some slight restrictions on how you communicate. And secondly, you also have to have a vision of where you're going, and that you have progressive news that you can take out, and progression of the company. So if you're going through a whole period of where you've got a lot of investment and no action or no outcomes, that's quite hard as a listed company, because investors are just looking at you through a screen most of the time, and they're just looking at the performance of the company from a profit and loss point of view, and earnings ratios point of view. So I think you have to think about, okay, what stage am I at, and what do I look like as a listed company? And also, what do I need? Because quite often there's investors who will actually come and support with the management team and support the company grow up in terms of its governance. And so I think thinking through those things before you go to a listing, I think there's 2 or 3 more stages, to be honest, before you went to a listing.
But the speed with which that next stage
goes... I'm not
goes...
saying doing it tomorrow.
No, well, but presumably the current environment actually changes things quite considerably from a need to sort of point of view, because if you are in a situation now where people are actively looking for alternatives to these high energy prices, and as I said at the top, people like me looking to put panels on my roof, I now can't find it. Companies aren't around. We need more companies on the market. Does the high energy price change the dynamic for companies like Solivus, do you think, Juliet?
I think they do. I think one of the reasons why we haven't got that many other market companies in the market is because this market has done this roller coaster over the last 10 years. And so people are slightly nervous about investing heavily now while the energy prices are up here, just in case they crash again. And I think this is the concern, is that you've got, Solivus is very interesting because it has a technology that has a particular part of the marketplace which is difficult for others to reach, which is why it has a unique selling point. Just a standard solar developer is a bit more tricky in this marketplace.
Joe, let me talk a little bit about your experience in recent years with the hurdles. We were talking before we went to air about the difficulties I'm having in trying to get a company to come and put panels on my roof. The second thing is I was astounded to find out that I've actually got to pay for a license to get this thing going and pay money back to the network. I cannot believe it is that difficult for someone to generate their own power. This is a hurdle, isn't it? I mean, this must surely be one of the barriers to entry for someone like me as a consumer, whether it's Solivus or engaging with another solar panel company. This has got to change. The government has got to be more engaged. Do you find the government is not engaged to the degree you'd like yet as a person that runs a company in this space? There's
certainly things that the government can do that are going to, will facilitate this. And Juliet will know far more about this than me. She's involved with it all. But we certainly find this in the commercial sector as well, is that you have to have all sorts of permissions from the DNO, if you've got a surplus, to feed it back into the grid. One thing that we would like to see is, a large warehouse being able to trade the surplus to the warehouse next door, because it's actually really low cost to produce it. Why can't you sell cheap green energy next door? But at the moment, you have to pay the same price to use that little wire to go next door as if you were shipping it in from Scotland. So the government can really help with this, and then we can trade energy locally in little microgrids in industrial estates, and you can't do that at the moment, so that would be brilliant.
Is there an appetite, do you think, at the government level to intervene in the market and take the responsibility away from the power providers to give those certificates to people so they can engage with their next door neighbour to supply them with power at a far cheaper rate?
I'm not sure about that, you probably know, but I have been talking to BEIS about, can you help with this regulatory problem? And they've said, yes, we do want to resolve this, we do want to help you. They are wanting to try and create this local trading, but as I say, Juliet probably knows.
Well, you've already said government wheels grind very slowly.
They do grind very slowly, and also they have lots of conflicts within them. So it really needs political leadership to get this moving forwards, because the system was designed for a centralised system to have large power stations. In 2000, there were 30 power stations in the UK, and now we've got over 1 million sort of small renewable power stations. And so the system and the regulation was formed in a world where power just went one way. It now goes two ways, and I think it's taken quite a long time for the regulators to get their head around how to make that work for everyone.
Yeah. Let me return, if I can, Joe, to this point about the economic affordability for someone, a consumer wanting to engage with the ARC or even putting things on my roof. If we'd been having this interview a year or so ago, I probably would not have... Exactly, very different. And I wouldn't really want to have had a payback over 10, 12, 14 years. I'd be less inclined to spend the multi-thousands of pounds I'd have to... Now, all of a sudden, it's becoming a lot more appetizing for me, and I have an electric car. So it's almost becoming more for me to charge my car on electricity than it is by filling up an old fuel car at the power station, at the fuel pump. So... in terms of affordability, what are you witnessing here? How do you see that developing? Presumably at the same time, your costs are coming down as well.
But it has been quite an extraordinary journey, really, especially going through the whole of the COVID thing, and the materials were very expensive a few months ago. Aluminium prices were very expensive as well. So that was affecting our ability to launch quickly and production and what have you, but that's now resolving itself. But with the energy prices, the Solivus ARC was to be launched as, an exclusive product, like an expensive stereo system or a Tesla car, top of the market designer solar system. But with everything that's happened in the energy market, it's now sort of makes financial sense to buy one, which is quite strange. So strange for me, because that wasn't how the product was launched.
Right.
We worked out that per kilowatt hour price is about 21 pence with a Solivus ARC there or thereabouts. And at the time when we were launching it, the energy prices were about 14 pence. They're now 35 pence. and the industry prices are way more as well. The lightweight solar is very slightly more expensive, although installation costs coming right down, gluing it makes it a lot less expensive to put it on. And you know, people had a 10-year payback at one point. Now it's like 3 or 4 year payback. So suddenly it makes financial sense for businesses to use this asset, their roof, to generate their own power, because it's energy security and saving money, and they're decarbonising their building, all those three things all at the same time. So plus we've got financial solutions to enable zero upfront capex installations. So why wouldn't you do it?
But in fact, we've just had a price increase notified, haven't we, just now? And in fact, prices are even higher than that, aren't they, per kilowatt hour?
I know, so we can't keep up with it all, really. 1 week it's 35, then it's 50. I think somebody had £1 per kilowatt hour last week. I mean, how companies are affording this, I don't know. Whereas they can generate it on their roof with this one for about 10 pence.
The thing that I am waiting for is some sort of government initiative to make it part of the building regulations, to make sure that housing companies actually put these things on the roof. My understanding is you've just undertaken an agreement with a civil engineering company, is that right?
Yeah, we're so excited about that particular project. So
what is it?
So Balfour Beatty, they're building quite a large section of HS2, and they are really passionate about decarbonising their construction processes. So I spoke with their CTO, Chris Johnson, a few months ago, and was lucky enough to be invited to the site a few weeks ago, and met with him and all his ambitious plans. And they have lots of portable cabins that they use for building motorways and all sorts of things. And those are powered off grid by diesel generators. So it costs a fortune, and quite high carbon dioxide, emissions and everything. So we're creating for them a system where they can have our lightweight solar on their portable cabins, coupled with a battery, to reduce the amount of energy required from the diesel generators. And we're super excited about this because it's a modular solution, and it's super scalable, and we're helping them save money, decarbonise. And they're really passionate about it, and it's been a wonderful experience to be working with them and to be involved in that.
Look, we've got to round this off to a close. I'd like, if I can, Juliet, one final question to you. As I said, you've had this sort of history with the business over a number of years, decades. Where do you see it moving? What do you think are the main things to watch out for in the next year or so that are going to be an exciting sort of step change in our attitude in engaging with renewables?
So I think there is already a step change of engaging. I think this winter is going to be a tipping point where people start to recognise that actually one of the things about energy is that I don't think the scarcity of energy has actually been priced incorrectly for many years. So what we're seeing is, with Russia removing its energy supply to Europe, we're seeing power prices spike as they are. And actually people are going to be nervous going forwards that this might happen again. So I think we will see a wholesale shift, not only in the commercial market, but also in the domestic market, to thinking more carefully about future energy costs for businesses and for households.
Joe, your thoughts on Solivus particularly, where you're going with the ARC and with these panels for factory roofs? What are you looking for in exciting developments that you're going to be seeing?
Well, there's lots of things in our pipeline, products that we would like to develop. Carports I see as a big opportunity, because there's just acres and acres of car parks that could be used for generating energy and powering transport in the future. We're also going to be launching a peel and stick solution for homeowners in a couple of weeks' time, which will enable people to put some of our products on shedios or home extensions to enable them to reduce their costs and decarbonise their homes as well.
We look forward to the developments as we see them, and good luck with the Balfour Beatty deal.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thanks indeed for joining us. That was the Chief Executive and founder of solar panel company Solivus, Joe Parker-Swift, and Juliet Davenport OBE, who joins us as a board advisor to Solivus and the former Chief Executive of the Good Energy Group. For more videos from us here at IGTV, join us on Twitter at IGCom, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.